Imagine standing on the precipice of a medical revolution, one that promises to fundamentally alter lives, eradicate suffering, and extend hope to families who have waited decades. Now imagine that promise evaporating, not because the underlying science failed, but because a critical batch of medicine lost its potency, a regulatory agency was paralyzed by red tape, or a key decision-maker was burned out and left their post. This is not a rare occurrence. It is a reality woven throughout the fabric of the global biotechnology industry. For those who believe that progress in medicine is only a matter of scientific discovery, it is time to peer behind the curtain. The real battleground for the future of healthcare sprawls far beyond sterile laboratories and Nobel-worthy breakthroughs. It extends deep into the offices of regulators, the hum of manufacturing plants, and the ethos of organizations tasked with delivering on the promise of human ingenuity. Let us rewind and set the stage. We are living in what many experts call a golden age for biotechnology. The pace of innovation is relentless. New therapies and technologies are emerging so quickly that even seasoned observers struggle to keep up. Take, for example, KalVista Pharmaceuticals' recent introduction of hereditary, the very first oral, on-demand treatment for those suffering from hereditary angioedema. This rare and often devastating condition causes sudden, unpredictable swelling attacks that can be life-threatening. Until recently, patients had to endure painful injections or frequent trips to the hospital. Dr. Mark Riedel, a prominent immunologist, says, "Oral on-demand therapy with hereditary gives patients a level of control over their treatment that was simply unimaginable a decade ago." This is not just a technical upgrade. It is a transformation for families who, for years, have lived in fear of the next attack. The headlines do not stop there. Cogent Biosciences has made waves with its targeted therapy, bezuclastinib, aimed at systemic mastocytosis, a complex immune disorder that leaves patients exhausted, plagued by pain, and struggling with allergic-like symptoms. In the Phase 3 SUMIT trial, bezuclastinib achieved a reduction in serum tryptase of more than 87%, a biomarker that reflects the root cause of this debilitating disease. The response has been electric. Investors have poured in, with Cogent securing a $350 million debt facility to fuel further development. As Dr. Lindsay Rain, a clinical trial expert, points out, bezuclastinib offers the potential to dramatically improve the lives of patients who have, for too long, had few effective options. Yet, innovation in biotech is never a straight road. It is more like a winding mountain pass, where each blind curve hides new dangers. Jasper Therapeutics provides a sobering lesson in how fragile progress can be. Their investigational drug, briquilimab, was heralded as a potential game-changer for chronic spontaneous urticaria, and it showed tantalizing possibilities in preclinical studies for severe asthma and eosinophilic esophagitis. But then, disaster struck. A single manufacturing glitch, a flaw in the cell culture process, sapped the drug's potency right before a crucial clinical trial. Dr. John Smith, a veteran biotech consultant, remarks, "Finding and fixing the root cause of briquilimab's manufacturing defect isn't just a technical hurdle, it's a matter of survival for Jasper. The stakes are immense. Years of research, millions of dollars, and, most painfully, the hopes of patients who are running out of time." These high-wire acts are unfolding against a backdrop of a deeper, more insidious crisis, a morale emergency within the United States Food and Drug Administration. In April, after a wave of sweeping policy changes and budget reductions, about 1 out of every 5 FDA staff members were forced to leave. This mass departure has only accelerated, leaving the agency tasked with overseeing everything from life-saving drugs to the food on your table. Severely understaffed and increasingly mistrusted by both the public and industry insiders. Peter Pitts, a former FDA official, has sounded the alarm. Reducing staff at the FDA risks not only slower drug approvals, but also real dangers to patient safety. Let us stop and reflect on the human cost behind this bureaucratic drama. Every day that a new therapy or medicine is entangled in regulatory gridlock, real people are left waiting, sometimes in pain, sometimes in fear, and sometimes facing life or death consequences. Imagine a parent watching a child cope with hereditary angioedema, knowing that an innovative oral treatment is stuck in limbo, trapped by paperwork rather than science. Or picture an adult with systemic mastocytosis, enduring months or even years more of pain and exhaustion because a review has been postponed. The FDA's troubles are only one part of the puzzle. Manufacturing mishaps, like Jasper's, can erase years of clinical progress in a single moment. Biologic drugs, often derived from living cells, are especially vulnerable. A slight change in temperature, a slip in quality control, or a contaminated batch can render an entire production run useless. The financial fallout can be staggering, with lost batches costing companies millions. More devastating, however, is the emotional cost for patients who see hope slip away, sometimes permanently. For rare disease sufferers, where treatment windows are narrow and options few, even a short delay can close the door on effective therapy. Overlaying these operational and regulatory dangers is the growing tension between the United States and China. As the world's two largest economies vie for dominance in biotechnology, scrutiny of foreign developed drugs and components has intensified. The result? Extended review periods, stricter import controls, and new uncertainties for firms reliant on international supply chains. Some analysts believe this will prompt a surge in American biomanufacturing, spurred on by the CHIPS Act, which aims to fortify domestic production by the year 2028. Yet, that transformation will not happen overnight. Until it does, every biotech company remains vulnerable to global shocks. Political quarrels, pandemics, and trade disruptions all threaten the fragile pipeline from discovery to delivery. And the pressure is mounting. The FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research faces the threat of an up to 15% budget cut in as little as 2 years. Should these cuts materialize, the consequences could be profound. Slower approval timelines, overworked staff, delayed safety responses, and a greater risk of mistakes slipping through the cracks. The words of Peter Pitts echo again. These kinds of staff reductions risk not just delays, but real lapses in safety. If we stopped here, the outlook might seem grim. But the history of biotechnology is one of resilience and adaptation. Adversity has often been the catalyst for unprecedented leaps forward. In the early 1980s, for instance, the development of recombinant insulin faced fierce skepticism and regulatory hurdles. Yet a determined coalition of scientists, advocates, and regulators pushed through. The result? Millions of lives saved. More recently, the emergence of messenger RNA vaccines during the COVID-19 pandemic stunned the world, with researchers and regulators collaborating at a pace never before seen. Today, new forces are rewriting the rules. Synthetic biology and personalized medicine domains, championed by visionary investors like Vinod Khosla, are upending traditional models. Rather than treating all patients alike, these approaches tailor therapies to the unique, genetic and molecular fingerprints of each individual. The implications are enormous. Drugs can be more effective, side effects can be minimized, and previously untreatable conditions may finally have answers. KalVista's launch of the KalVista Cares program shows how companies are beginning to bridge the gap between innovation and access, offering education and support to ensure that patients actually benefit from new therapies. Personalized medicine is no longer the stuff of science fiction. Clinical trials are underway, and in some cases, these bespoke treatments are already reaching the market. Artificial intelligence is another disruptive force reshaping the sector. FDA Commissioner Makaburi has become an outspoken advocate for integrating machine learning tools into the agency's drug review process. The promise is substantial. Algorithms capable of parsing massive datasets, detecting subtle safety signals, and forecasting manufacturing bottlenecks. Imagine a future where AI-driven quality assurance systems monitor every step of drug production in real time, flagging anomalies before they become costly recalls. Some leading-edge biotech firms are already piloting these technologies, quietly preventing errors and keeping patients safer long before the public ever hears about it. However, these technological innovations bring new ethical and regulatory challenges. How do we ensure that artificial intelligence systems are transparent, unbiased, and accountable? If a machine learning model misses a warning sign, who bears responsibility? These questions are not hypothetical. They are actively shaping policy debates at the FDA and other global regulatory bodies. The tension between speed and safety, innovation and accountability, has never been more acute. What does all this mean for you? Whether you are a patient, an investor, or simply a curious observer of medical progress. First, it is a call to look deeper. When you see a headline about a miracle drug or a biotech breakthrough, do not stop at the surface. Ask, how robust is the manufacturing process? Is the supply chain secure? How is the morale inside the agency responsible for approving this therapy? These hidden factors often determine whether innovation reaches the people who need it most. For investors, the lesson is clear and urgent. Clinical data, while invaluable, tells only part of the story. The true winners in biotech will be the companies that can integrate cutting-edge science with operational excellence, regulatory savvy, and genuine patient support. As an Evaluate Pharma analyst observes, Ectorly's oral formulation gives it a clear competitive edge, but its ultimate success will hinge on market access and pricing strategies. Cogent's bezuclastinib may set a new benchmark in systemic mastocytosis care, but only if its long-term safety and efficacy data prove robust. Jasper's future literally depends on solving its manufacturing woes. Otherwise, its laboratory breakthroughs may never translate into patient benefit. For patients and their families, the message is equally clear. Perseverance and advocacy are key. Stay informed about clinical trials, regulatory developments, and new therapies. Do not hesitate to ask healthcare providers tough questions about how drugs are made, tested, and delivered. Consider joining clinical trials or patient advocacy groups, especially if you are affected by a rare or chronic disease. The more engaged the patient community, the stronger the pressure on industry and regulators to deliver on their promises. It is essential to recognize that scientific innovation rarely follows a straight line. The path from discovery to delivery is littered with setbacks, regulatory twists, and operational hurdles. The most successful companies are those that can learn from failure, adapt rapidly to changing requirements, and keep patient safety at the heart of their mission. Dr. Lindsay Rain sums it up. Clinical breakthroughs are only meaningful if we can get them safely and reliably into the hands of patients. Looking ahead, what does the future hold for these key players? Ectorly could become the gold standard for on-demand hereditary angioedema treatment, though emerging gene therapies may soon challenge its dominance. Bezuclastinib could become the preferred therapy for indolent systemic mastocytosis, but only if diagnosis rates continue to improve and barriers to access are lowered. Jasper Therapeutics may yet rebound, provided it can resolve the manufacturing flaws that have derailed briquilimab's progress. If not, years of promising research could be consigned to the pages of forgotten medical history. On a larger scale, the entire industry could witness a renaissance in American biomanufacturing, particularly if tensions with China continue to escalate. By the year 2028, the CHIPS Act could have transformed the domestic production landscape, reducing reliance on international supply chains and insulating American patients from global disruptions. But getting there will require sustained investment, visionary leadership, and a willingness to learn from past mistakes. Artificial intelligence, too, could shift from isolated pilot projects to widespread adoption, fundamentally altering how drugs are discovered, tested, approved, and distributed. The big question is whether ethical and regulatory frameworks can keep up with the pace of technological change. If they can, we may see faster approvals, lower costs, and safer medicines. If not, the risks, bias, error, and a loss of public trust could undermine even the most brilliant scientific advances. Now let us broaden our lens and examine the global context. The biotechnology story is not limited to the United States. European regulators, such as the European Medicines Agency, are grappling with similar shortages of staff and funding. In Asia, countries like China and Singapore are pouring billions into biotech infrastructure, hoping to leapfrog established pharmaceutical giants. International collaboration has the potential to accelerate breakthroughs, but rising geopolitical tensions threaten to splinter the global ecosystem. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed both the promise of global cooperation, seen in unprecedented vaccine development, and the peril of vaccine nationalism, export bans, and supply chain chaos. For policymakers, the lesson is to balance innovation with public safety. It is not enough to fund cutting-edge research. Robust investment must also go into human infrastructure. The scientists, regulators, and factory workers who turn ideas into life-changing therapies. Agencies like the FDA must be supported, especially during turbulent times, so they can uphold the highest safety standards. Transparency, ethical oversight, and public engagement are non-negotiable, particularly as gene editing and AI redraw the boundaries of what is possible. If you are a student or professional considering a career in biotechnology, this is your moment. The field has never demanded more creativity, ethical judgment, or multidisciplinary thinking. Whether your passion lies in molecular biology, data science, clinical research, or regulatory policy, the opportunities to make a real impact are immense. The organizations that will thrive are those that embrace diversity, not just in skills, but in background, perspective, and approach, and that foster cultures of resilience and adaptability. And for everyone else who simply wants to stay informed and engaged, remember, your voice matters more than you might think. Public awareness and advocacy shape which treatments are prioritized, how resources are allocated, and what standards are set. When you ask questions, share your story, or support patient organizations, you help steer the industry toward what matters most: improving and saving lives. In closing, can the biotech sector live up to its extraordinary promise amid so much volatility? The answer is a cautious but determined yes, provided that companies, regulators, investors, and patients unite, learn from setbacks, and commit to investing not only in technology, but in people and process. Expanding biomanufacturing capacity, embracing automation and artificial intelligence, and doubling down on regulatory excellence can turn today's setbacks into tomorrow's breakthroughs. As history has shown, the greatest advances often arise from the darkest moments. Here is a fascinating, little-known fact. Some of the most transformative advances, like artificial intelligence-driven prediction of manufacturing defects, are not just in development, but are already being quietly implemented by visionary biotech companies. These victories may not make headlines, but they are laying the foundation for a future in which safe, effective therapies arrive faster and reach more patients than ever before. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of medical innovation, subscribe to our channel. We want to hear from you. What do you think is the single greatest obstacle facing biotechnology today? Your insights could help shape the next era of healthcare. Until next time, stay curious, keep challenging assumptions, and remember, the future of medicine is being